Hello, everyone. It's truly wonderful to see such a broad turnout from the US, Greece, Cyprus, and across the globe. As the acting director of the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for the Study of Hellenic Culture, I'm delighted to extend a warm welcome to each of you. As we embark on this year's events, the center is set to mark a significant milestone, the 50th anniversary of the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. This occasion calls for a reflection on the island's remarkable resilience and its indomitable spirit. Our programming through to June celebrates the rich and diverse cultural fabric of Cyprus, honoring the unique heritage and the contributions of its people. We commence a series of events with International Greek Language Day, and it's our honor to have the renowned Professor Stavroula Tsiplakou with us today. This celebration not only pays homage to the Greek language's richness, but also marks the beginning of our exploration into the multifaceted heritage of Cyprus. In the coming months, we will explore the island's ancient Hellenic roots and its distinct identity, shaped by a myriad of cultural influences. From delving into the intricacies of the Greek Cypriot dialect to engaging in a symposium on linguistic diversity during International Mother Language Day, we will immerse ourselves in the aspects of Cypriot culture that echo across ages. Our calendar is filled with enriching activities, from lectures on Cyprus' poetic and musical legacy to culinary events that offer a glimpse into Cypriot gastronomy and discussions that connect our history to modern reflections. A highlight of our program, Heritage at High Tide, will bring to the forefront the critical issue of climate change and its impact on the treasured cultural sites of Greece and Cyprus coastlines and beyond, emphasizing the vital need for cultural conservation. As we celebrate Cyprus's resilience, history, and its aspirations for unity, the center's activities are designed not only to reminisce, but also to ignite conversations about shared future, a future where culture, understanding, and appreciation knows no boundaries. I'd like to take a moment to thank our long-time partners, the Embassy of Greece in the United States, the Consulate General of Greece in Los Angeles, and welcome our new partners for this event, the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus in the United States, the Honorary Consulate of the Republic of Cyprus in Los Angeles, and the Thesaurus Lingua Graecae Research Program. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce the Associate Director of our Center, Dr. Simos Zenios, who will lead today's event.
Thank you, Ioanna. Good morning to everyone. Kalimera or Kalispera, depending on where you are. And it is a pleasure to welcome everyone to today's event as well. The celebration of International Greek Language Day has become a tradition for our center, and it is wonderful to partner with long-standing and new partners and to see seasoned and new members of our audience. I am certain that we are all eager to hear today's lecture, so I will try to keep things short. First, a few words about the structure. We will first hear 4 sets of opening remarks by representatives of institutions that generously have placed our event under their auspices. Following these messages, I will introduce and give the floor to our speaker for the main part of our event. Once the lecture is completed, we will hold a brief Q&A. Please keep your microphones muted until that time, when you will have ample opportunity to pose questions and share comments. The first message that we will hear is by the Honorable Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Giorgos Kotsiras, and I will screen it for everyone.
Ελληνίδες και Έλληνες του κόσμου, φίλοι της Ελλάδας απανταχού της γης, συμπατριώτισσες και συμπατριώτες. Με παλμό χιλιάδων ετών και θαυμαστή ανθεκτικότητα, η ελληνική γλώσσα αιώνες συνοδεύει την ανθρωπότητα. Αποτέλεσμα αυτής της σπάνιας πορείας, η συσσόρευση ενός απαράμιλου λεξιλογικού πλούτου, ικανού να ερμηνεύσει τα πιο πυκνά και περίπλοκα νοήματα. τροφός κάθε επιστήμης και πολλών δυτικών γλωσσών. Η ελληνική γλώσσα ζει μέσα στα ξένα λεξιλόγια, συμμετέχοντας σε μια διαχρονική πολιτισμική όσμωση. Η ελληνική, ακολουθώντας το φαινόμενο της γλωσσικής εξέλιξης, ανανεώνεται και ανανεώνει, εμπλουτίζεται και εμπλουτίζει, ερμηνεύει σύγχρονα ενοιολογικά σχήματα και απαντά σε νέες ανάγκες. Και είναι αλήθεια πως χάρη στη μοναδική της περιγραφικότητα, η γλώσσα μας έχει τη δυναμική να λειτουργήσει ως πυξίδα, νοηματοδοτώντας ένα σύνθετο κόσμο. Φίλες και φίλοι, η εποχή μας δεν ευνοεί τις βεβαιότητες. Η πραγματικότητα κινείται γύρω από ένα συνεχές μικρών και μεγάλων κρίσεων, οθώντας μας να αναζητούμε πιεστικά τον αλληλοσεβασμό, τη δικαιοσύνη, την αρμονική συμβίωση. Αναζητούμε τις λέξεις οι οποίες δίνουν υπόσταση στις παραπάνω έννοιες. Και οι λέξεις αυτές είναι ελληνικές. Διάλογος, δημοκρατία, διπλωματία. Καθόλου ανέτεια λοιπόν, με αυτές τις τρεις λέξεις από δέλτα, λέξεις ελληνικές με παγκόσμιο νόημα, η χώρα μας διεκδικεί την εκλογή της ως μη μόνιμο μέλος του Συμβουλίου Ασφαλείας των Ηνωμένων Εθνών για την περίοδο 2025-2026. Θα ήθελα κλείνοντας να αναφερθώ σε μία ακόμα ελληνική λέξη από δέλτα με παγκόσμιο νόημα, τη διασπορά. Από την αρχαιοελληνική της έννοια έως σήμερα, η διασπορά ως μορφή αλλά και ως σημασία έμεινε σχεδόν αμετάβλητη. Διασπορά, το μοίρασμα των σπόρων, το ταξίδι των αξιών του ελληνισμού ανά την Ιφίλιο. Διασπορά, ένα πολύτιμο εμείς που εκτείνεται στα πέρατα του κόσμου και διηγείται τη δική του ιστορία πάντοτε στα ελληνικά. Σας ευχαριστώ.
The second message that we will hear is by the Honorable Secretary General for Greeks Abroad and Public Diplomacy, Professor John Chrysoulakis. I will share again the recorded message.
Φίλες και φίλοι, η 9η Φεβρουαρίου καθιερώθηκε να είναι για τους Έλληνες και τους φιλέλληνες όλου του κόσμου η ημέρα της ελληνικής γλώσσας. Είναι η μέρα που τιμούμε τη μνήμη του εθνικού μας ποιητή Διονυσίου Σολομού, ο οποίος είχε πει «Μη γαρείς έχω άλλο στο νου μου, πάρεξ ελευθερία και γλώσσα». Γιατί είναι τόσο σημαντική η γλώσσα και πώς συνδέεται με την ελευθερία? Η ελληνική γλώσσα έχει μια ιστορική πορεία 40 αιώνων προφορικής και περισσότερο των 25 αιώνων γραπτής παράδοσης. Από την αρχαιότητα ως σήμερα, η παρουσία της στο χώρο και στο χρόνο είναι αδιάλειπτη. Ως ένας ζωντανός οργανισμός που εξελίσσεται, διαφοροποιείται, προσαρμόζεται, διαμορφώνεται ανάλογα με το ιστορικό και το κοινωνικό γίγνεσθε. Από την κλασική γραμματεία στις ντοπιολαλιές, από το δημοτικό τραγούδι στην καθημερινή επικοινωνία, από τα θρησκευτικά κείμενα στην επιστημονική ορολογία. Είναι πραγματικά θαυμαστό το ότι σήμερα μιλούμε την ίδια γλώσσα που μιλούσαν οι αρχαίοι μας πρόγονοι. Είναι μαγικό ότι σε τοπικές διαλέκτους, σε απομακρυσμένα χωριά, διασώζονται λέξεις που χρησιμοποιούσε ο Όμηρος. Έχουμε, αγαπητοί φίλοι, μόνο το προνόμιο σε όλη την Ευρώπη, όπως λέει και άλλος μας μεγάλος ποιητής, Οδυσσέας Ελίτης, να λέμε τον ουρανό ουρανό και τη θάλασσα θάλασσα, όπως την έλεγαν ο Όμηρος και ο Πλάτωνας πριν από 2.500 χρόνια. Είπαν ότι αν οι θεοί μιλούσαν μεταξύ τους, θα χρησιμοποιούσαν την ελληνική γλώσσα. Τι πιο ένθεο και τι πράγματι πιο αληθές, γιατί η ελληνική γλώσσα, η μητέρα των γλωσσών, το θεμέλιο του σύγχρονου πολιτισμού, είναι μάνα και τροφός του ορθού λόγου, της φιλοσοφίας, της ποίησης. Η ελληνική γλώσσα χαρακτηρίζεται από μουσικότητα, πλαστικότητα, μέτρο, ακρίβεια, σαφήνεια, ομορφιά, βάθος, σοφία, λογική. Είναι μια γλώσσα όπου υπάρχει στενή σύνδεση του σημαίνοντος και του σημαινόμενου, όπου οι λέξεις εκφράζουν σκέψεις και λόγο. Και ως λόγος, ορθός λόγος, κατάφερε στο πέρασμα των αιώνων να εκφράσει υψηλές έννοιες και διαχρονικές οικουμενικές αξίες, να δημιουργήσει με λίγα λόγια πολιτισμό. Πολιτισμό με κέντρο τον άνθρωπο. Τον πολιτισμό στον οποίο βασίστηκε εμπολής και κατά κύριο λόγο ο σύγχρονος δυτικός πολιτισμός μας. Αυτόν τον οποίο επικαλούνται και στον οποίο ανατρέχουν οι σύγχρονοι επιστήμονες και φιλόσοφοι. Θεωρώ σημαντικό να τονίσω ότι ο ελληνικός πολιτισμός, ο οποίος έχει ως βάση, όχημα και κινητήριο δύναμή του την ελληνική γλώσσα, είναι γέννημα του ελληνικού πνεύματος. Και αυτό σημαίνει δίψα για το καινούριο και το άγνωστο, γενεοδορία, δεκτικότητα και προσαρμοστικότητα. Με μια λέξη, ελευθερία. Με μια άλλη λέξη, δημοκρατία. Είναι ένας πολιτισμός και μια γλώσσα δίχως στεγανά και αγκυλώσεις, που έδωσε αλλά και έλαβε από άλλους πολιτισμούς με τους οποίους συναντήθηκε. Και αυτό είναι κάτι που ισχύει ως τις μέρες μας. Ο ελληνικός πολιτισμός μέσω της ελληνικής γλώσσας είναι γέφυρα διαλόγου, επικοινωνίας, ανταλλαγής και αλληλεπίδρασης με άλλους πολιτισμούς. Μπορεί όσοι μιλούν σήμερα την ελληνική γλώσσα να είναι μόνο μερικά εκατομμύρια άνθρωποι σε όλο τον κόσμο. Έλληνες, φιλέλληνες και ομογενείς μας σε κάθε γωνιά της γης. Ωστόσο, διδάσκεται στα μεγαλύτερα πανεπιστήμια και αποτελεί πεδίο εκμάθησης και σπουδών για όλους εκείνους που αντιλήφθηκαν τη μαγεία της και κατανόησαν το μεγαλείο της. Η γλώσσα που μας έδειξαν ελληνική στις αμμουδιές του Μύρου θα έπρεπε σύμφωνα με τον Βολτέρο να γίνει η κοινή γλώσσα όλων των λαών. Έγινε η γλώσσα της επιστήμης, της ιατρικής, των μαθηματικών, της φιλοσοφίας, της λογοτεχνίας και των υπολογιστών. Για μας τους Έλληνες απανταχού, τα ελληνικά είναι και κάτι παραπάνω. Είναι η ύπαρξή μας, η ταυτότητά μας, οι ρίζες μας, η άειλη πολιτιστική μας κληρονομιά, η αγκαλιά της μάνας Ελλάδας στα παιδιά της και το σημείο αναφοράς μας σε κάθε γωνιά της γης, ο ακατάλητος δεσμός μας με την πατρίδα. Αγαπητοί φίλοι, στη Γενική Γραμματεία Πόντιμου Ελληνισμού και Δημόσιας Διπλωματίας του Υπουργείου Εξωτερικών στηρίζουμε κάθε προσπάθεια που αφορά στην εκμάθηση των ελληνικών. Στηρίζουμε τα ήδη υπάρχοντα, αλλά και τη δημιουργία νέων τμήματων κλασικών ή ελληνικών σπουδών στα πανεπιστήμια σε όλο τον κόσμο. Στηρίζουμε τα κέντρα ελληνικής γλώσσας με σκοπό την ενίσχυση και προώθηση της ελληνικής εντός και εκτός Ελλάδος, την οργάνωση διδασκαλίας σε αλλαδοπούς και ομογενείς, τη στήριξη των διδασκόντων της ελληνικής στο εσωτερικό και το εξωτερικό και την παραγωγή υλικού για την προβολή και τη διάδοσή της. Ενώ είμαστε ιδιαίτερα υπερήφανοι για τη δημιουργία της ψηφιακής πλατφόρμας στα ελληνικά, η οποία τώρα υπάρχει και σε 5 γλώσσες. Προωθούμε την ελληνομάθεια με κάθε μέσο που διαθέτουμε. Είναι καθήκον όλων μας ως Ελλήνων να διατηρούμε, να προάγουμε, να υποστηρίζουμε, να υπερασπίζουμε την ελληνική γλώσσα και τη σωστή εκμάθησή της. Το οφείλουμε στα παιδιά μας, στη διασπορά μας και σε όλο τον ελληνισμό. Χρόνια πολλά στην ελληνική γλώσσα.
Our third message is from the Embassy of Greece in the United States. While Her Excellency Ekaterini Nasika, Ambassador of Greece to the United States, was unable to attend today due to obligations at the embassy, she has kindly and generously prepared the following message that I will screen for everyone.
Greetings to everyone from Washington, D.C. Thank you all, whether you are in the US, Greece, or Cyprus, for making the time to participate in this program and affording me the opportunity to say a few words of welcome and appreciation. Allow me here to thank Dr. Simos Zinios, Associate Director of the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Center for the Study of Hellenic Culture, and Dr. Sharon Gerstel for their consistent support and cooperation. As you know, this event honors International Greek Language Day, which is celebrated annually on February 9, a day that also honors the memory of the Greek national poet Dionysios Solomos, who authored Greece's national anthem. This day highlights and celebrates the Greek language, the language of Homer, of Kavafi, Seferis, Elitis, the New Testament, and its unparalleled influence on other languages and the world in general. With this event, we also seek to showcase the incredible linguistic diversity of the Greek language. The very phrase Greek language may lead you to overlook the incredible diversity and variety that this language exhibits with its enriching regional dialects that reflect the unique histories and cultures of various communities and play a significant role in preserving cultural tradition. As noted Greek linguist and grammarian Manolis Triantafylidis said, the dialects of a people are one of the most valuable resources for the enrichment of a written language, and it would be a mistake and unforgivable narrow-mindedness if one would exclude any word or expression or idiom just because it belonged to a dialect. All foreign languages, and even great writers, consciously worked for this. The topic of this year's Greek language lecture, that of Cypriot Greek, offers the opportunity to reflect on the multifaceted significance of dialectal diversity in general as a reflection of regional histories within Hellenism, as a reminder of rich cultural traditions and the heritage that one generation passes on to the next, and as an important matter of language rights and inclusive societies. Indeed, the map of Greece could well be designed as a map of regional language varieties. From the dialects and idioms of the Dodecanese, those dialects of northern Greece, from the Greek of the Peloponnese and the Ionian Islands, to varieties spoken in Cyclades and in Crete, Greek dialects stand as a testament of the unique contribution of each particular part of Greek to the rich tapestry of our whole language. It is also important to remember that even today, Greek dialects, intricately woven into the fabric of Greek culture, extend far beyond national borders. We are reminded of this as we think of dialects such as Pontic, spoken by communities in Russia and Turkey, South Italian Greek, a remnant of Doric Greek found among the elderly in Calabria and Salentina, the Mariupolic dialect, still spoken in Ukraine, Sarakatsan dialect in Bulgaria, and the Cretan dialect in Lebanon and Syria, embraced by around 7,000 individuals. The historical and contemporary importance of Cypriot Greek cannot be overstated. Its development mirrors the history of its community of speakers, offering a testament to the enduring presence of Hellenism on the island. Furthermore, Cypriot Greek has been instrumental in literary, hagiographical, and cultural works of paramount importance for the entire Hellenic world. Our speaker, Professor Stavroula Tsiplakou, is among the world's leading experts on Cypriot Greek, and we look forward to learning from her. Θα ήταν σωστό, πιστεύω, να κλείσω την παρέμβασή μου για την ημέρα που γιορτάζω με την ελληνική γλώσσα και ιδιαιτέρως την κυπριακή διάλεκτο, μιλώντας στα ελληνικά και ανακαλώντας τη μνήμη μας το Γιώργο Σεφέρη. Στη συλλογή του «Ημερολόγιο καταστρώματος Γ», αφιερωμένη στον κόσμο της Κύπρου, μνήμη και αγάπη, όπως χαρακτηριστικά προτάσει στην αρχή της, ο Σεφέρης περιδιαβάζει με συγκινητική μαεστρία διάφορες ιστορικές περιόδους του νησιού. Μάλιστα, σε δύο ποίηματά του, «Ο δαίμον της πορνείας» και «Τρεις μούλες», παραπέμπει ευθέως στο περίφημο χρονικό του μαχαιρά του 15ου αιώνα και στη μεσαιωνική κυπριακή διάλεκτο. Σας διαβάζω για να ακούσουμε τη μελωδία της. «Ως γιονι ξέβρεται και ο δαίμον της πορνείας, όλων των κόσμων πλημελά του εκόμπωσε τον ρίγαν και έπεσεν εις αμαρτίαν». Και σε μετάφραση των Κίλι και Σέραρντ, «Even as you know that the demon of fornication assails the whole world, so he beguiled the king, and the good king fell into sin». Καλημέρα σας.
I would now like to invite His Excellency Evangelos Sava, Ambassador of the Republic of Cyprus to the United States, to offer his opening remarks. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ, Σίμω. Καλωσορίζω όλους τους συμμετέχοντες σήμερα σε, σε αυτήν την υπέροχη πρωτοβουλία. Και ευχαριστώ πολύ και την συνάδελφό μου, την πρέσβη κυρία Νασίκα, για τα τόσο περιεκτικά σχόλιά της και την αγάπη της για την κυπριακή διάλεκτο. So, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be with you today at this important event, and a particular honor to be given the opportunity to give some brief comments. In celebrating the occasion of the International Greek Language Day, let us recall that Greek has a distinction of being the oldest living language in the world, with its attested date circa 1500 years before Christ. Let us also consider the fact that it is one of the richest languages, if not the richest, with a treasure trove of 5 million words and 70 million word types. Its multivariate cultural and historical influence may only be described as immense, having been the language of Aristotle and Plato, among others, but also, crucially, the language of the New Testament. In relation to other languages, the Oxford Companion to the English language states that while the influence of classical Greek on English has been largely indirect through Latin and French, more than 150,000 words of English are derived from Greek words. This is, of course, allow me to say, a very well-known fact in popular culture as well, if we are to take the example of the unwavering conviction of a very memorable character from the film But Big Fat Greek Wedding. As far as the Cyprus dialect is concerned, this is obviously quite distinct from all the other idioms and dialects of the modern Greek language. Yet with its unique preservation of some very specific characteristics of ancient Greek, our dialect wonderfully reflects our own distinct heritage of Greekness and manifests a historical course completely intertwined with the very history of Cyprus itself. After all, throughout time, the Cypriot dialect of Greek survived intact all its conquerors and their imported languages, Latin, Frankish, Venetian, Ottoman, and English. And let me say that this is all the more relevant now as we enter a year in which we mark a truly terrible milestone, the 50th year of illegal occupation by Turkey following its brutal invasion of 1974. Let me also pay tribute on this occasion to the quite beautiful use of the Cypriot dialect in our literature. Among the many poets who have written in our dialect, Vasilis Michailidis, often described as the national poet of Cyprus, is undeniably special, particularly with his long poem titled 9th of July. At the same time, the Cypriot dialect is also showcased in the folk songs from a long period of Cypriot history, starting approximately from the midpoint of the Byzantine era up until the end of Venetian rule. In closing, I would like to commend the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for the Study of Hellenic Culture for putting together today's event, which is the first of a series organized in collaboration, among others, with our embassy. So do stay tuned for more such worthy occasions. In a more general sense, I want to congratulate the center and its leadership, my compatriots Ioanna and Simos, for its great work and achievements, and to reiterate the embassy's full support and deep appreciation. I very much look forward to visiting the center in person and meeting with those of you who are in the Los Angeles area in the upcoming months. Thank you again.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for these thoughtful and stimulating remarks. We are indeed delighted and honored that we are working closely with the Embassy for this year's programming focus on Cyprus. Now, on to the main part. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Stavroula Tsiplakou, today's esteemed speaker. Dr. Tsiplakou is Associate Professor of Linguistics, Dean of Arts, and Academic Coordinator of the MA program in Greek Linguistics and Literature at the Open University of Cyprus. She holds a Ph.D. in Linguistics from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. I would need a separate meeting to present Professor Tsiplakou's contribution to her fields, and I am sure that for many of you she needs no detailed introduction. I will therefore highlight only certain aspects of her work in this introduction, especially those that are pertinent today. Her research areas include syntax, pragmatics, sociolinguistics, and educational linguistics. Her major research interests are dialectology and the study of language variation and change, and literacy learning, especially in context of linguistic diversity. Her research in sociolinguistics and language variation and change focuses on the study of variation in Cypriot Greek, language contact between Cypriot Greek and Cypriot Turkish, and more recently, linguistic landscapes with a focus on the inner city of Nicosia. Her contributions to applied and educational linguistics are also extensive. They cover such topics as teaching Greek as a second or foreign language and literacy learning in context of linguistic variation, with special emphasis on the honing of critical literacy. She has co-authored the National Curricula for Language in Cyprus in 2010 and in Greece 2011. Both projects had a critical literacy agenda and both actively promoted the teaching of language variation with a view to honing critical metalinguistic awareness. She has delivered over 150 conference papers and several invited or keynote lectures, and she has published over 100 papers, including articles in journals such as Linguistic Inquiry, Lingua, Pragmatics, Journal of Pragmatics, Language Variation, Linguistics and Education, and Multilingua, among others. She has co-edited a special issue of Scientia Pedagogica Experimentalis on Linguistics in Education, the volume Language Variation, European Perspectives 2, and Intermediate Language Varieties, Koine and Regional Standards in Europe. She was also the principal investigator in the research projects mapping the linguistic landscape of Cyprus and from diglossia to diaglossia. With an eye towards the future, I close by mentioning that together with Spiros Armostis and Fotini Koutsou, she is the co-author of the forthcoming and eagerly awaited A Grammar of Contemporary Cypriot Greek. These quite selective highlights should be sufficient to indicate why it is not only a joy, but a true privilege to host here today for a lecture which is titled Present-Day Cypriot Greek, Will the Dialect Survive? Professor Tsiplakou, you have the screen.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone in all the different time zones. I am humbled and honored. I am truly humbled and truly honored to be with you today on this very special day. I'm particularly humbled by the introduction that Simos delivered. I'm not sure how well deserved it is, but thank you very much nonetheless, Simo. Thank you to all the distinguished, to the center and to the university and to all our distinguished guests for their introductions, which were particularly interesting. I'm very happy and delighted to be giving a talk about Cypriot Greek in this event on the Greek language. Well, as you know, celebrations of languages are run-of-the-mill for us linguists. In a sense, we celebrate languages with our work. This is what we do. And we do believe that the biggest, the greatest, the most significant celebration of a language outside of, emotive reactions and accolades, etc., is actual scientific grounded research on their features and properties and usage. And with that in mind, I'm going to be delivering today's lecture on Cypriot Greek in the hope that I'll be able to elucidate some aspects and discuss also some worries that are, dominant among Cypriot speakers, particularly the worry about whether the language, the dialect will disappear, as have many other Greek dialects, as we know. So this is a lecture for the general public. I hope it will not get too technical. If it does, we'll try to explain as simply as possible the various terms we'll be using. So I'll just share my screen. This is a typical depiction of the island of Cyprus as the island of Aphrodite, the island of love, naked goddesses, etc. The reality of the island is actually a lot more, let's say, interesting and at times a lot harsher. And the linguistic reality is also a lot is also fascinating. So Cyprus has a long and interesting linguistic history ranging from the 12th century BC at least, with lots of settlement of different peoples, different language families, different languages. And its most recent history includes colonization, which presumably, if not actually, led to the birth of post-colonial English on the island, a cruel war in 1974, which resulted in the de facto, if not de jure, partition of the island, a referendum in 2003 for the reunification of the major ethnic communities of the island, which fell through, which didn't happen. As regards the languages of Cyprus, we have Cypriot, the largest ethnic groups are Cypriot Greek and Cypriot Turkish, and Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. So correspondingly, the two dialects of the largest dialectal varieties of the island are Cypriot Greek and Cypriot Turkish. On the island, there are also other linguistic varieties, Armenian, an endangered language called Maronite Arabic, or better still, Sana, and Kurbecha, which is Cypriot Romanes. Oopsies, turning the screen. In this lecture, we're going to be focusing on Cypriot Greek. As we know, Cypriot Greek belongs to the southeastern Greek dialect zone, and it retains features of medieval Greek, for example, in verb morphology, in verb endings, in clitic placement, i.e., where pronouns appear in the sentence. And as regards its vocabulary, it displays lexical borrowing from Arabic, from Frankish, from Venetian, Turkish, and English, among other languages. An aspect of a sociolinguistic situation in Greek-speaking Cyprus and also in Turkish-speaking Cyprus, in the Turkish-speaking community, that we need to be aware of is diglossia. Now, diglossia is a rather hard term for Greek speakers because in Greek, as you know, diglossia means bilingualism, and diglossia, which was actually coined by a Greek author, Emmanuel Roidis, back in 1855, and then the Greek scholar Yannis Psycharis as diglossie in French, does not describe bilingualism, which in Greek we call diglossia, but it describes something else, something rather different. So it describes a situation where a couple of languages or different varieties are spoken in a place, in a community, one of which is the official variety, but is not naturally acquired, so it's not spoken in the home. It is, however, the written variety, the language which has codified grammars, and the language which has prestige. Whereas the varieties that's spoken in the home, that's naturally acquired and used in everyday conversations, non-formal conversations in the speech community, is thought called by Ferguson, who used this term, the low variety, or as opposed to the formal one, which is called the high variety. And these terms are not hierarchical in linguistic terms in any way, but they describe what speakers themselves think about the hierarchical relationship between these varieties, right? So diglossia is very common across the world. It's there in the Arabic world, it's there in Swiss-speaking Germany, in former colonies, among the local languages and the languages of the colonizers. It was there in Greece between the Katharevous and the Dimotiki. And of course, it's there in Cyprus between Standard and Cypriot Greek. So in Cypriot, in Greek-speaking Cyprus, the standard Greek variety is the language of formal communication and education. It's not naturalistically acquired in the home, and it's not a dialect, a variety that's used in everyday conversations. Let's say in everyday communication, what we call the dialect, or rather the Cypriot variety, is the one that's used. Yep. So we have diglossia, which we cannot call diglossia in Greek because diglossia is bilingualism. We call it kinoniki diglossia, societal bilingualism or social diglossia. So as is typical of diglossic situations, among Cypriot Greek speakers, there are ambivalent attitudes towards the dialect and the standard variety. And people use different emics or community internal terms to describe both. So they talk about Cypriot Greek so they often describe Cypriot Greek as a stigmatized variety, a variety that they call vareta, heavy. Although what's heavy about it, I can't exactly tell you. They tell you sort of in very impressionistic ways that it sounds heavy, etc. And also that it sounds peasanty, horkatika, although horko, which is village, doesn't refer to a particular village, a particular horko, right? It rather refers to the overall, let's say, rural areas of Cyprus. And on the other hand, they may talk about Cypriot Greek as a variety that's close to their hearts, a variety that they love, a variety that's authentic. And dialects indexing of what we call authenticity of affect, authenticity of emotions and emotive reactions is a very, very common trope, actually. It's a very, very common attitude among dialect-speaking communities. So it's not unique to Cypriot speakers. There are also other interesting terms that speakers use, which I want to discuss today. So they use this term sistarismena, which means tidied up, sigirismena in standard Greek, right? Cypriot Greek. And they also use words such as viennika or more viennika, more polite Cypriot Greek. And then for standard Greek, there is reserved the term kalamaristika or penpoucheries, in the sense that standard Greek speakers are the scholars who abide in Cyprus and who, wield the plume and the inkwell, etc. So they're, erudite and scholarly speakers, as opposed to the Cypriot speakers who are peasantries. Yeah. So there are these distinctions, but in the middle, you have this ground, these sort of levels of Cypriot Greek, which are described as tidied up and polite and more close to standard Greek. And now let's see, yeah. And in our recent research, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, we have put a claim that what's happening in Cypriot Greek today is that there is a koine variety emerging, a variety that's arguably still emergent, still very new, but already quite coherent as regards central aspects of its structure. By koine, koine is the term kini, a common variety. Yeah, it's a Greek word. And the argument has also been made on the sociolinguistic side that the koine is a variety of overt and covert prestige. So people, attribute prestige to it because it's a Cypriot variety, but they also attribute prestige to it and may use it in more formal communicative situations. We think that what's crucial is that this Cypriot koine is perceived as structurally mixed, and actually is structurally mixed to a large extent due to prolonged and dense contact with standard Greek, yeah? And the nature of the mix is such that it allows for both local and standard-like features to co-occur. And so if we have convergence of the standard variety, this is somehow arrested due to the fact that the koine acts as a buffer towards full convergence of the dialect to the standard. Yeah. So older research talks about 18 dialect zones in Cyprus, and this is what Kondosopoulos discussed and described in his work. Unfortunately, he does not describe the 18 dialect zones in great detail, nor does he provide isoglosses, neat geographical features separating each variety from the other. Yeah, he describes the subvariety of Nicosia, Chiamesauria, as a more standard variety. And of course, we have the colossal work of Brian Newton in 1972, published in 1972, called Cypriot Greek, in which he presents data collected in the 60s from 128 villages. And he describes their variants from different villages. What is, however, interesting in his work is that these variants, these different varieties, kind of crisscross. They don't form neat patterns separating one village variety, one local variety from another. So here in this map, this is one of Newton's maps, you can see how Viazume, I'm in a hurry, is pronounced. So the little dots on the map are villages, are the 128 villages, and the white part of the map represents the pronunciation, is where this word is pronounced Viazume. The one with the slanting lines here is Chiazume. The one with the vertical lines is Chiazume, and the one with the sort of vertical and horizontal lines is Chiazume. I'm going to be talking about that in a minute, so about this particular feature of Cypriot Greek. So, but as you can see, this crisscross, so you get the Chiazume pronunciation both here in the east and here in the west. Yeah. So there's no real neat distinction between correspondence between areas and variants of Cypriot. Now we talk about leveling. And what's leveling? Leveling is the shedding, if you like, the disappearance of features of a dialect or of a variety that are somehow marked in the sense that they are either too local, rare, not perceived as belonging to the whole of the variety, let's say, perceived as more isolated, or marked for other reasons, perceived as more peasanty, more heavy, and whatnot. Yeah. Do we get leveling in Cypriot Greek? Do we get the disappearance of local features from local rural areas? Yes, we do. And all the sociolinguistic reasons for leveling are there, they are in place. Of course, the major reason are the first population movements and demographic changes that we got after 1974, where you got people from different areas having to live in the same place due to the forced population movements after the war. And people, of course, had to accommodate mutually. They had to talk like one another to be understood and to create new social networks. So this mutual accommodation, is mentioned in the literature as a factor par excellence leading to leveling and koinization. So we may assume that speakers shed purposefully, to the extent that they could, shed local features of their accents in order to talk, to match the speech of other speakers and to create, new social bonds. Urbanization, literacy in Standard Greek, were also contributing factors to the leveling, to the disappearance of local subvarieties or features of local subvarieties of Cypriot Greek, to the extent that now all we have is a homogenized, as Marilena Kaniolemu and Pavlos Pavlou called it back in the day, back in 2001, a homogenized variety, or what we now call a koine, a common variety that's spoken in Cyprus, a pancypriot variety, if you like. It's interesting that speakers are not really aware of geographical variation anymore. And also that the younger speakers do linguistic performativity, do languaging, as we call it, by using dialectal features that are, however, exaggerated, excessive, or even fake, made up. That's what we call hyperdialectism. And why do they do that? Well, they do it for all sorts of reasons: to perform, to act out youth identities, or to create rapport, to be cool, etc. But hyperdialectism, so the use of heavy, let's say, or marked or basilectal dialect features only in acts of language play, shows us that these are not actually used in everyday communication. It is a clear indication, I think, of leveling. This is frowned upon by older speakers. This is a piece of data that I got back in the day in 2011. So I'll read the Cypriot part, and excuse my accent. I've lived in Cyprus for 22 years, but I still sound like a pen pusher, I'm afraid. So this woman says to me, this participant says to me, ναι, εγχορκάτικα που μιλούν κόρη μου, referring to younger speakers. Έρχεται στο κομμωτήριο να ψήσει μια κορούα 15 χρονών, δεν ξέρω ακριβώς, και λαλεί μου εγιώνει. Εγιώνει is a very marked form of εγώ, I, right? The personal pronoun, first person. Ακούει Σταυρούλα μου, εγιώνει, κόρη μου λαλώ της, είσαι Λευκοσιάτισσα κόρη μου, είσαι Χωραΐτισσα. Είναι τα τρόπος εν τούτος να λαλείς εγιώνει, ουφού λαλεί μου και φεύγει. Okay. What she says here is very interesting. It's that younger speakers use peasanty, basilectal, marked terms, forms, features to perform an identity that she's not happy with. And also these peasanty features do not come from a particular village. They're just a register, a low, let's say, register, a low stylistic level of Cypriot Greek, right? This to me points to, and she thinks that this is not good manners because this girl is actually from the capital. So really, Eyoni, this marked form, should not be part of her everyday vocabulary, yeah? So this makes the whole thing very interesting, I think. This points to the fact that speakers are actually not aware at all that of what comes from what area and what survives and what not. And this is an indication of leveling, indirect indication. So to get on to direct evidence for leveling, here's a study that we conducted back in 2016 with my student Marilena Kondogiorgi. So we looked at some of the villages in the Famagusta district in southeastern Cyprus, known as the red villages, the Kokinochoria, and we looked at 4 variants and how they fare vis-a-vis leveling. These are the red villages, as you know, marked in yellow here on the map. Xylophagu, Avkoru, Xylotimbu, Iopetri, Frenaros, etc. I have to say that our participants did not come from Avkoru, so they did not come from the Larnaca district. They were all from the Famagusta district. This is replying to a query by Simos with whom I was having a conversation about this earlier on. And this is the education level. And the variants that we looked at, so we looked at the use of sh versus h before e and e, the front vowels. So whether people say treshi, he or she runs or is running, versus trehi. Now this is very interesting because trehi here is the standard Greek variant, but also it is the local one. So whereas the pancypriot or the koine one would be treshi, the palato-alveolar, the palatal is a mark, trehi, is a mark of the local area of kokinochoria. Yeah. We also looked at the choice of th over hu or hu, so whether people say thelo, which is the pancypriot variety, or hello, which is the local one, and here's our hu again, or thoro versus horo. Yeah. And we also looked at whether if you get consonant clusters relying from, resulting from the hardening of E, whether this gets simplified. This sounds very complicated, I'll explain. A word like pios, pronounced with a Q in standard Greek. Of course, in Cypriot Greek is pronounced as pios with a Q, with the palatal, stop, yeah. Underlying pios, we assume underlying pios for all sorts of reasons that I won't bother you with now. And so this can be pronounced as pios, or the p may disappear and it may be pronounced as pios. Correspondingly, theos, uncle, pios may come out as pios again, yeah? Ομορφιά may come out as ομορφιά. And this one, the second one, is the local variant. And of course, we also looked in the morphology, we looked at the use of accusative versus genitive in the plural. So whether people say τους ανθρώπους, which is morphological accusative, for genitive versus των ανθρώπων, which is morphological genitive. So τα σπίτια τους ανθρώπους, the houses of the people, of the men. Yeah. And here's our methodology. We created little stories and we elicited our data. So we had stories, for example, such as these. I'll read it out. Η Ιώνα και ο Γιώργος σκέφτονται να χτίσουν σπίτι και ταυτόχρονα πρέπει να αγοράσουν και αυτοκίνητο. Εκάμασιν των προϋπολογισμών και τα έξοδα του. Ενός ευκήκασιν 250.000 ευρώ και του άλλου 15.000. Οι 250.000 είναι ο προϋπολογισμός του αυτοκινήτου. So the expected answer is either oi and to speak Q or speak Q with a full consonant cluster or with cluster reduction. This would be the pancypriot variant, and this would be the expected more local variant. Yeah. And you can see the collective results. I'm not showing you any statistics here, just raw numbers. But what you see is massive leveling, and it can only be described as such. Huge preference of shu over hu, so treshi, not trehi. Huge preference for thu over hu or hu, so thelo, not helo, thoro, not horo. And of course, the full clusters, pios, pios, ομορφιά, rather than pios, ομορφιά, etc. So, preponderance of the pancypriot items. And we found that education is a decisive factor. So educated younger people, and in main cases, women seemed to be the ones who were innovating, i.e. moving towards the pancypriot forms, which is what Labov usually, this famous sociolinguist called William Labov, I'm sorry to those of you who don't know who he is, calls change from above. Yeah. And so this is one instance of leveling. It's happening all over Cyprus, actually, with other variants. And we have a very big project called From Diglossia to Diglossia, where we've collected quite a large amount of data. And we are now in the process of working through it to see what other aspects of leveling are taking place. But this was a nice and neat little example. So this is the other thing I want to discuss, the koine formation. So I'm talking to this girl and we're recording, and I ask her, I'm speaking in standard Greek, and I ask her, τώρα σε μένα μιλάς κυπριακά? You can see the translation on the right-hand side. And she says, ναι, τώρα εσένα είναι κυπριακά που σου μιλάω, αλλά όχι τα κυπριακά που είναι να μιλήσω με τους δικούς μου, αλλά τα κυπριακά που καταλάβεις εσύ που είσαι Καλαμαρού. Μιλώ σου έτσι συσταρισμένα. Πιο επίσημα κυπριακά, ας το πούμε. And I ask her, καλαμαρίζεις δηλαδή? Are you talking like a pen pusher? And she says, όχι, θα έλεγα ότι καλαμαρίζω, είναι κυπριακά. Έτσι θα εμίλουν και σε έναν αγώνα των Κυπραίων. Καλαμαρίζω μόνο να πάω στην Ελλάδα. So what is this informant saying? She's saying that she can speak Standard Greek fully well, that she can speak Cypriot Greek, and she, in fact, can speak in at least two registers or two stylistic levels of Cypriot Greek. One that's the one that she speaks at home with her own people, and one that she may use either to people that she's not acquainted with, i.e. when there's some kind of social distance, or with speakers of Standard Greek like myself, assuming, of course, that these are mutually intelligible, right? This variety is mutually intelligible to me. So she's saying that there is this level, this register of Cypriot Greek, asistariισμένα, and she's using a term for it, tidy it up, which is sort of, Cypriot, all right? It's not standard or anything, but it's intelligible, and it's acceptable to speakers of the standard, and concomitantly, it's acceptable to use it in more formal situations, okay? And this is what I think she's describing is the Cypriot koine. Yeah. What is happening in koinization when a koine variety occurs? In the literature, people talk about a koine as a compromise variety as a result of mixing of linguistic subsystems. And these are definitions provided by Peter Tradgill and Paul Kurzweil, who I noticed is here in the audience with us tonight. That's a great honor. Hi, Paul. So a koine emerges as a result of dialect contact and convergence, yes, Paul, with leveling of local basilects being a concomitant condition. So leveling and koine go together, hand in hand. And koinization may also emerge not because dialects, local varieties are in contact, but also because a local variety may be in contact with a standard. So in Cyprus, it looks like we have everything happening, right, sociolinguistically. And what's happening in koinization typically is that we get mixing of varieties, and we get leveling of marked differences. And we saw that with our examples of kyos and helo and trechi, etc. And we get simplification, which is defined as an increase in regularity. The example of kyos rather than kyos, of ομορφιά rather than ομορφιά, so the maintenance of the content of the two consonants is an example, I would say, of simplification. It makes the whole word more transparent, more intelligible, if you like, less opaque. Opaque, by the way, is a formal term that phonologists use to describe phenomena such as the one I described earlier, opacity. And in koine formation, you get something called stylistic reallocation, as described by Peter Tradgill and Paul Kurzweil, who is again here with us. So I'll talk about that later when I discuss an example of reallocation. And so the unavailability of local features, which are marked, χορκάτικα, the shedding of those features, together with some kind of convergence to the standard variety, make the koine a variety of prestige, not just prestige in terms of authenticity. It's a dialect close to our hearts, we love it, which is what speakers usually say, but also overt prestige, because it's close to the standard, therefore speakers are comfortable using it with standard speakers, or maybe in more formal communicative situations. And this is what's happening in the Cypriot koine right now. As regards structural mixing, here's an example from the phonology. In the same utterance, the speaker is using ke and ch, ke and che, both variants. Generally, she is speaking Cypriot Greek, but she is using ke and che almost in free alternation, almost in free variation, the Cypriot and the standard variant. Yeah. Here as well, you get tis and tes. Tis is the accusative feminine plural determiner article, and tes is the more standard-like one. Tis δυνατότητες, tes αδυναμίες. I won't discuss the next example. And of course, you get structural mixing So here you get a very Cypriot, very local, very Cypriot-specific syntactic pattern in the syntax. You get a cleft. So not φοιτητές που θα αξιολογήσουμε, but είναι φοιτητές που θα αξιολογήσουμε. It is students that we will evaluate. This is a structure that's particular to Cypriot Greek. It's not there in the standard variety, but it's couched in standard Greek morphology. So to make this more simple for the general audience, very simply, the speaker is not using the Cypriot form of the verb to be en. They're saying ine. Yeah, they're using the standard form. Yeah, and they're thinking that they're speaking standard Greek. They're not. Same here with the Archbishop example. And of course, what we also get in the koine, we get what we call unexpected proclices, which I'll discuss a little bit later, so I'm going to skip this. Yeah, this part. And we get periphrastic tenses. So we get this type of present perfect. Έχω αφιπηρετήσει τον Αύγουστο. I have retired in August, meaning I retired last August. Now, Cypriot Greek traditionally does not have this type of periphrastic tense. This would be expressed with a simple past, but lo and behold, suddenly standard Greek or standard-like present perfect seems to be seeping into the grammar of the koine. Yeah? So it looks like we have a move towards a mixed system, a move from diglossia to diaglossia. And Peter Auer says that we have different types of diglossia. So exoglossic, where the standard is an unrelated language, not the case in Cyprus. We have a type where the standard variety is used exclusively in writing, not the case in Cyprus, because of course the standard Greek is also used in informal communication, in oral communication. We have endoglossic diglossia, where the standard is used in orally as well. Seems to be happening in Cyprus. And we have diaglossia, where intermediate varieties between standard and base emerge, forming a standard dialect continuum. And so that also seems to be the case here. And Peter Auer and Marilena Kariolemu have described the Cypriot situation as a diaglossic rather than a diglossic one. And so it looks like the Cypriot koine is indeed an intermediate variety. Are we moving from C to D? So from diaglossia, this intermediate variety, to de-dialectalization? We argue that this is not the case because the move towards type D is arrested for several reasons that I'm going to talk about right now. So let's look at the past perfect. Why are we looking at the past perfect? Well, we'll see in a minute. As we said a minute ago, we're now trying to look into the grammar of Cypriot Greek, and we're trying to see whether there are big, important, significant grammatical changes that make it into that have made it into a diaglossic system. Whether the grammar changes, whether there are competing grammatical structures from the standard and from the local variety, and whether you have new grammatical forms emerging. And that's something that's extremely interesting. It's at the center of language change, and it's also part of my own research, and research that I'm doing with colleagues over the past many years here in Cyprus. So let's look at the perfective tenses, the perfect tenses. So as we know, standard Greek has this present and past perfect, έχω διαβάσει, είχα διαβάσει, where you have the verb I have and that's inflected, and this non-inflected form, διαβάσει, γράψει, etc., which however has perfective aspect, but nothing else, which however is διαβάσει, not διαβάζει, yeah? But έχω, έχεις, έχει is inflected, διαβάσει is not. Sorry, I keep using terminology, I know I shouldn't. The main as regards the semantics of the past perfect in standard Greek, its main semantics is past in the past. So, είχα φύγει, I had left, πριν έρθεις, before you came. Yeah, something that happened in the past before something else that happened in the past. And more recently, there's a new function of the past perfect emerging, and that's the function of showing, just indicating the remote past. So that's like a past tense, but showing remote past. So είχα πάει στη Σερβία παλιά, I had been, meaning I went to Serbia a long time. Yeah. What is happening, and we get another function in standard Greek now, the function of non-remote past. So είχα πάει σε ένα party χτες, I had gone, meaning I went to a party yesterday. So Cypriot Greek doesn't have this present perfect. It has, the dialect has another traditional dialectal present perfect be, which is made up of the verb I have, inflected, and a past participle, a sort of a passive participle, which is also inflected which has a number, gender, and gender on it. So, έχω θκευασμένο το Harry Potter, I have read Harry Potter, and that's masculine and singular. Είναι θκευασμένη, she has studied, right? Θκευασμένη here is feminine and nominative and singular. Yeah. So that's there in the dialect. And of course, it's the same with past perfect. So, for example, here, a COVID example, πήγα να την δω, αλλά ήταν κολλημένη. I went to see her, but she was contracted, meaning she had contracted the virus. Yeah? Where this has gender number features, right? Κολλημένη, φιλικό, feminine, singular, etc. But in contemporary Cypriot Greek, in the koine, we have a new present past perfect emerging. For example, here, this speaker is describing an interview that he gave, and although he mentioned, I'm giving you the context, although he mentioned the relevant research that he had done, he still didn't get the job. So he says, they made me an interview, they interviewed me, and I had mentioned to them the research that I did. Yeah. Now the sequence of events is different from what he's actually saying, right? So he had done the research and then he mentioned it in the interview. So past in the past is the couch in the past tense, and past, I mentioned to them during the interview, is couched in past perfect, had mentioned. Yeah. We call this out of the blue past perfect a mid-sequence past perfect in Cypriot Greek. So it's appearing out of the blue. It's kind of breaking the continuity of tenses. And it happens in the best of families, actually, because, for example, President Anastasiadis, the former president of Cyprus, during a newspaper interview where he is describing what went on and his communication with President Putin during the banking crisis of Cyprus back in 2013, back in the day, those were the days, he says, and this is in writing, and this is in a newspaper, so it's supposed to be standard Greek. He says, I called President Putin after the first decision was taken. He had mentioned to me that he was interested in deepening Russia's relations with the European partners, blah, blah, blah. All of us standard speakers, pen pushers, who read this interview went, wow, how perspicacious. He knew there was going to be a crisis. And he talked to President Putin about it before the Europeans started, making decisions about the bank haircut, etc. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. All the president meant was that Putin mentioned to him during that phone call, right, that he was interested in deepening Russia's relations, right? So this past perfect here is just a simple past, couched in past perfect, standard past perfect morphology. And we want to say that based on where this past perfect, this new Cypriot past perfect surfaces, what we want to say is that this out of sequence past perfect is just a narrative marker, doesn't show past in the past, but it's a narrative marker which performs pragmatic functions such as scene setting, emphasizing a focal point. So he had anαφέρει for real, Putin had really mentioned that he wanted to do that, for example, right? So it's focusing. We find this in other varieties as well. It's a common trend. And we investigated it in a quantitative study that we did with Spiros Armostis, who's here in the audience. Hi, Spiro, Dimitris Michailioudakis, and also colleagues from the University of Athens. So we looked at how standard and how Cypriot Greek speakers perform vis-a-vis these past perfects. I won't bore you with the details of and the methodology. But let's look at these three columns. This is Cypriot Greek speakers reporting on Cypriot Greek, and this is past in the past. So Cypriot Greek speak, the reading of the past perfect as past in the past. So I had done something before I did something else. Cypriot Greek speakers accept it at very high percentages, at 97% for Cypriot Greek. They think it's acceptable in Standard Greek, but they also think it's acceptable in Cypriot Greek, yeah? And of course, I'm sorry, and the gray column is Standard Greek speakers of Standard Greek, who of course think this is totally acceptable in Standard Greek. So Cypriot and Standard Greek speakers perform alike, almost alike here. For both of these groups of speakers, the past perfect signals past in the past. Now, as regards this out of the blue mid-sequence emphatic past perfect, Cypriot Greek speakers accept it to a large extent, but Standard Greek speakers don't accept it in Standard Greek. So here's a huge difference. And this shows us that really we have a new function of the past perfect in the Cypriot Greek koine. That's not there in the grammar of Greek, of Standard Greek. It's a new grammatical or stylistic function in the koine. Yeah. So the full gamut of the semantics of the past perfect in Standard Greek is not fully acquired in the Cypriot koine. Past perfect is just a new emphatic form of the past tense. So do we have full convergence to Standard Greek as regards the past perfect tense? No. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about little words such as, and I'm going to focus on clitics. Clitics are forms of the personal pronoun in Greek that do not bear stress. So they kind of, in order to be pronounced, they have to go next to the verb. They have to really be adjacent to the verb. So the generalization is that in Standard Greek, these go right before the verb. So her I see, her I'm looking at. But in Cypriot Greek, they go after the verb, thorotin, yeah. And they go right after whatever categories they are first in the sentence. So if you have na or enna, to drink it, or you should drink it, or you will drink it, enna topkis, the clitic pronoun appears second. It's not enapkisto, right? That's ungrammatical. If you have the negation and you get entoipkes, you didn't drink it, yeah? If you have a WH, a question word such as pios, pote, pu, often, etc., then you have the pronoun has to appear second. So the rule of pronoun placement, of clitic pronoun placement in Cypriot Greek is that the clitics, the unstressed forms of the pronoun have to appear second in the sentence, right after the first constituent. If the first constituent is the verb, well, then they'll appear after the verb. If it's something else, then they'll appear right after that. And that has been the case since medieval times. We know that, right? Since Hellenistic times. Yeah. What we get though in the koine is we get what we've called Panagiotis Papas, our colleague, and myself have called exceptional clitic placement, unexpected proclisis. So you may get the clitic before the verb, standard-like structure that's very close to Standard Greek in unexpected context. So where in other terms, the speakers are speaking Cypriot. So here's this girl and she's talking to me about her childhood in her village, and she's talking about Kemal, who was this Turkish drunkard who would come and scare us. But it's not scare us, and it's not scare us, it's us scare, standard-like, yeah? And this guy here, he's an academic, he's talking about the dialect, and he says, in the old times, I didn't speak the Cypriot dialect. Next sentence, I considered it a lack of illiteracy, a sign of illiteracy, where the it appears before the verb. It I considered, standard-like, in a standard-like way. Otherwise, the environment, the context is Cypriot. The theorun, the verb, has quite Cypriot morphology, right? And here you get alternation. So this student is saying to me, I know this. So verb first, clitic second, and then to eshi mathetismo. Student of mine has it. It has student of mine, with the it coming before, with the pronoun coming before. Yeah. So it looks like we get alternation between clitic first and clitic second, and that's pretty interesting. It's almost as though we have two competing grammatical rules: the grammatical rule of Cypriot Greek and the grammatical rule of Standard Greek as regards the syntax here of the pronouns, and then they seem to occur together in people's heads and in their grammars, yeah, and in their production. And you get it in writing as well. So these are posters from the linguistic landscape of signage from the linguistic landscape of Cyprus that I have photographed. And the one here reads to Sherito Plisi Patriarchia. So the hand is armed by the patriarchy, meaning the hands of femicide, women killers, women murderers, yeah, femicide. So you get the clitic before the verb. It arms the patriarchy. And here in 1974, you sold her meaning Cyprus, in blood. In 2020, you sell her in passports. This is referring to the profuse selling of illegal passports to foreigners, right? And the her, it, Cyprus, occurs before the verb, yeah? Yeah, tinpulat. So we looked at all of these phenomena that I've described with a bunch of people. This was a paper that was published back in 2016 that we're out together with Spiros Armostis. Hi, Spiro. And that was based on 57 interviews. And I won't bore you with the details of the participants, etc., but the data came from sociolinguistic interviews and recordings. And in these recordings, we see that people use he, but they also use sh. So they use sh, which is the Cypriot form, also he, which is the standard-like form. They will use ch, for example, in che, and, but they will also use q, so they may also say and. And as regards past and present perfect, they use it at 16%. And as regards pronouns used in the standard-like way, they use them at a rather high rate of 19%. And this is what Evelina Livada and other colleagues have also found in another study that they did a couple of years later. And of course, there's a series of studies with a lot more quantitative data that my PhD student, Evathma Panikolia, together with Spiros Armostis, did and completed in 2021. This was questionnaire-based grammaticality judgment tasks. So we asked people whether they found the occurrence of, with real examples and scenarios that they had to read, whether they found the occurrence of the appearance of pronouns before the verb, i.e. the standard-like structure, as natural in Cypriot Greek. And if you look at the results from a scale of 1 to 10, most people find them completely natural. Women more so than men. If you look, the light gray is women, and men is the dark gray column, right? And women find them, give them a 5 or a 6, right? On the naturalness, on the Cypriotness scale, at a higher degree than men. Yeah. So it looks like a change from above in the koine. It looks as though the syntax of pronouns is shifting towards towards the standard, or both the Cypriot and the standard grammatical rule co-occur in the koine. And this is a genuinely mixed system. And I need to say at this point that we have a wonderful Cyprus acquisition team at the University of Cyprus, which looks at children's performance. And they found that looking at tons of children, they found that children also use pronouns before the verb and the place pronouns before the verb, and the crucial contributing factor, influencing factor, predicting factor, if you like, is schooling. Yeah. So when they go to school and start speaking standard Greek, they shift more towards the standard-like structure. Okay. The last structural example I'll be looking at today is clefts. Now, in standard Greek, if you want to emphasize something, a part of the sentence, you tend to speak it before the verb. So if you want to say, I'm looking at Stavroula, you say, τη Stavroula βλέπω, right? So you speak Stavroula right before the verb. In Cypriot Greek, you have a structure that's pretty much like the English one or the French one or the Romance one, and in Stavrin to thorough. It is the Stavroula that I'm looking at. Stavroula that I'm looking at, yeah? This is not there in standard Greek at all. What we have found, this is ongoing research, but what we have found is that clefts behave in a manner that's the complete opposite of how clitics, of how pronouns behave. So if Cypriot speakers try to speak standard Greek, when they try to speak or write in standard Greek, they will still use clefts. So for example, they will use things like εμείς δεν είναι που θέλουμε να λύσουμε το Κυπριακό. Isn't it us that want to solve the Cyprus problem? So this is us with no agreement is in the singular and us in the plural is simply ungrammatical for standard Greek speakers. Same thing here. Is you that are a candidate today, it's you that are a candidate today. This would be totally ungrammatical in standard Greek, but this somehow completely goes under the radar of Cypriot Greek speakers. So the corresponding standard Greek structure is not acquired. The Cypriot structure it persists, and it gets transferred onto their production in standard Greek. So this is an aspect of the Cypriot grammar that will not change anytime soon, I don't think. And that's because of complex acquisition factors that I won't bore you with now. But we have a generative story running about it, and it has to do with interfaces and features. And I'll stop using these terms now because this is getting into Chomsky and linguistics, and I'm not quite sure that you're going to be happy about that. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to go back to Koine now. The red villages. As we saw in the red villages, we have massing leveling. So people say treshi, they say thelo, they say pkios. They don't say trehi, helo, pkios, etc. Right? These are the variants. But 80% of informants use h in forms of the verb echo. So they will say έχεις, έχει, έχετε, before e and e, obviously. Yeah. Only 20% of informants in this study that I described earlier used sh, the pancypriot, the koine variant in echo, in the verb echo. So why does this particular variant survive in this particular verb, only this particular verb? Well, it's frequent. The verb is frequent. It's a verb I have, yeah. It's lexically constrained. It's only this word, yeah. It looks a little bit like standard Greek, so it may carry some kind of prestige, but also, crucially, participants were fully aware. We asked them, who do you think uses here in the verb I have in echo? Everybody said, almost everybody said that this is a feature of our local area, Kokinochoria. So they were quite certain, quite aware that this feature is an indexical, as we say in sociolinguistics, a symbol of their local identity, only in the verb echo, yeah? So what's happening here is that in the Cypriot koine, as it is spoken in Kokinochoria, you still get a very local variant, echi, echis, έχετε, surviving, yeah? For reasons having to do with local identity. Last one, Cypriotismo. You know, in Cypriot Greek, the word Mali has the plural, in standard Greek rather, the word Mali has the plural Malia. So you add an A to form the plural, yeah? The E disappears and the L gets palatalized. So Mali, Malia. In Cypriot Greek, and that means hair, yeah? For those of you who don't know Greek, in Cypriot Greek, you get malya with a longer palatal L, but you may also get maya. So you get a ya olive, but you may also get a ya. And the village Iopetri, may be pronounced Iopetri, but more often than not, it's Iopetri. Yeah. And this is something like the Spanish yeísmo, you know, Sevilla, where y is pronounced y in various parts and under various constraints in the Spanish-speaking world. Speakers seem to be aware that these are pronounced identically, so you get jokes like this one, how to speak Cypriot 101, yaya to EU, so sunglasses. So yaya, glasses is pronounced the same as, is written the same as yaya, grandmother. You get this sort of joking happening, yeah? Now, this is very interesting because here was purportedly originally a feature of Limassol and Famagusta areas, of these two areas, according to an old paper by Christodoulou. And it looks like this year is spreading in the koine, and this seems to be an innovation led by young male urban dwellers, as was found in a paper by Panagiotis Papas and another similar paper by Armospiros Armostis and myself. And this is what Peter Tradgill called socio-stylistic reallocation that I, talked about earlier. So in the koine, this you stops being an indexical, an index of a local variety, Limassol and Famagusta. It becomes a feature of the koine, and it becomes a feature of young speech, young urban speech, and it's spreading in the koine. The quantitative data that we have show a spread of 30 to 40% among young speakers, and it has very interesting indexicalities. So speakers say things like, I cannot say it. My tongue doesn't go there. And this other speaker said to me, I can say it, but I almost died. Έσπασα, ώσπου να το μάθω. And he says, for things that he had nightmares featuring the more standard like malya variant. It's interesting that his mother can say the lyo quite happily, and he as a younger speaker only says lyo, not lyo, also he claims. And this is interesting again regarding indexicalities. This teacher of Greek at school says that she was reading Elitis, who is one of our poets, Nobel laureate poets, who has written a collection of poems called O Ήλιος ο Ηλιάτορας, which contains Ήλιος is sun, and Iliatoras is something like imperator. So it's a pun, it's a neologism, poetic neologism that he made. Unfortunately, this contains two years, yeah? So of course, all of her students read O Ήλιος ο Ηλιάτορας instead of O Ήλιος ο Ηλιάτορας, and she was horrified. And I said, what does it matter? Διαβάζαν όλοι Ήλιος ο Ηλιάτορας, she says. And I said, what does it matter? And she says, μένουν έξω στα καφέ, μάθημα. They're not in a cafe, they're in class. So this cafe business indicates to me that she is interpreting this as a feature of informal young speech, right? And definitely not as a feature, as a local feature, geographically constrained feature. So this is socio-stylistic reallocation, another feature of the koine. Yeah, I'll skip this one. And again, my favorite, Pikris talks about, compares Cypriot with Spanish, yeísmo, he's aware of the phenomenon. So he says that this is pronounced villa, and in Cyprus we say maya for hair. So finally, ultimately, we're not peasants, we are Spaniards. It's Spaniards that we are. Right. So he's not treating that as a local peasant feature, the yeísmo, the Cypriot yeísmo. So what's going on in koine formation? We have structural and sociolinguistic factors as well. The survival of some local variants may involve a shift in indexicality, as in the case of U that we've just discussed, a change in the symbolic value of a sound in this case. Similarly, in the maintenance of hue in kokinochoria, in the verb echi, we have values, social values associated with identity, right, with local identity. So the koine in that respect doesn't shift completely towards the standard, right? And we have, of course, arrested de-dialectalization. I stopped with de-dialectalization because of incomplete acquisition of the properties of the standard grammar. This is the case with the past perfect, and this is the case with the clefts, as I showed. Yeah, I think I should stop here, Simo. I have a few more things to show, including images, but I think I should stop here to give people some time for discussion. How about that? Or should I wrap this up quickly?
I think whatever you want, Stavroula. If you can wrap it up in like a few minutes, we can do that. Otherwise,
I could wrap it up in 2 minutes. The rest is just images and things. All right. So what's happening is that dialect is also present in the public sphere. Now we've now stopped looking at grammar and structural properties. We're looking at how dialect is written, and we see that dialect is written quite a lot in the public sphere. Of course, this dialect has been being written since the 14th century at least. But now we see it in the linguistic landscape. So One Cyprus, Stop the Nonsense, or Pelares, here in the buffer zone, in posters, on walls. This is very nice. It says we are all immigrants, and immigrants is feminine, all is masculine on purpose, right? It's an Antifa slogan. In signs, so this is a cook shop, and it's written in Cypriot, Mariko, yeah. In the social media, of course, in TV shows, so ever present, and of course it's present in the schools. In the schools, the official policy of the Cypriot government is that standard Greek is the language of education, and that there are directives sent to teachers that if children use a dialect, the teacher should repeat what children say in correct Greek. Correct Greek meaning the standard form. So in the schools, there is still by and large some kind of language coercion happening. Yeah. However, teachers do not actively scold the children or stigmatize them for talking dialect. They just sort of indirectly correct. And here's an episode that I recorded in my work on educational linguistics in the context of Cyprus. Here, a teacher was trying to get the kids to talk about dialect. She was trying to get them to talk about dialect in standard Greek. This kid said, the dialect is here in our lesson, and he said it in Cypriot Greek. And also he said that it's a peasanty variety. And then the teacher wasn't able to handle this, not through any fault of her own, but because she wasn't trained to look at to capitalize on dialect and to use it in teaching. And then what's really interesting in this episode is that she says, "Τούτον και θέλω να το θυμάστε. Νομίζω είναι λίγο δύσκολο για εσάς ακόμα. I don't really want you to remember this. It's a little difficult for you." Meaning what dialect is. And she said this in dialect. So this kind of epitomizes for me the ironic things that are happening within the education system. However, in some classes, some teachers implement bidialectal teaching on their own, or of their own volition, of their own initiative, because they're convinced about its value. And here are some of the results. This kid did the project. This is from a class which was taught by my PhD student, Evanthi Papanikogla, who also did the PhD on clitics that I talked about, on pronouns that I talked about earlier. So she wrote, so this kid is taking an interview, got an interview from her grandparents about games in old times. And the grandparents said everything in Cypriot Greek, and then she transcribed it in Cypriot Greek, and then she tried to quote unquote translate it in standard Greek. And you can see that she uses valis, and then she says that she writes underneath that in standard Greek it's vasis, kyo is vio, hame is kato, etc. This is for us a huge benefit by dialectal teaching. It's the generation of critical metalinguistic awareness about the structural and stylistic properties of both the dialect and the standard, which leads to better, more critical language learning overall. And this is something that the kids did in that same school. They, for Greek Language Day, they did a poster in which they claim their right to be peasantry. Of course, peasant is within inverted commas that the kids put there themselves, to signal irony towards this notion that dialects are peasantry, etc. And I will leave you with this. This is the end. Should I stop sharing?
I would like to ask everyone to join me in offering a virtual round of applause to Professor Tsiplakou for this wonderful lecture and the expertise and the wealth of knowledge that she brought to our discussion. I would like to thank and acknowledge once more our partners, and of course everyone, you, the audience, who attended and made this a memorable morning or evening, depending on where you are. We will look forward to welcoming you to our future events that you can find on our events website. And thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day or the rest of your evening.